Hey guys, Peshwan Gademi back here with another video for Third Circle, and today we are going to talk about the ego. Oh boy, we have a lot of people with ego in the world, and it's becoming harder and harder to communicate with each other, and so I think it makes sense to maybe have a discussion about what is ego, how does it work, and how is it basically preventing normal day-to-day people like you or myself from basically evolving. When does it take over versus when do we take over it? Some of the things that are very important to understand about the ego as it pertains to the three circles, right? So people in the first circle typically have a lot more ego, people in the second circle have a lot, and then people in the third typically have less. And people from the fourth are basically able to move past the idea that ego even exists and rather use ego as a tool to help themselves rather than fall victim to it. So let's talk first about how ego functions from a physical or should I say metaphysical standpoint so that we can understand the existence of ego. So think about your chakras, all the way from top to bottom, and think about your ego as a protector or a barrier that basically comes in front of each of your chakras to block more energy from going there. Why would that be a good thing? Well, let's say you, for example, are going through a breakup. That breaks off. Your energy shield from your heart starts to get punished. It becomes hard to bear. Your ego will then cover that like basically a shield, preventing energy from going there, allowing you to survive and become more cold. And while most people understand that by blocking their heart, they will endure less pain and be able to be more logical towards their choices, less looking at love and less letting love hurt them, they'll say things like, I don't want to need to be in love again, or love is bullshit, or blah, 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 blah. What they're basically saying is that I've used my ego to close off my heart, and I left it there closed too long, so therefore I forgot how to love. But the continuous idea of being a human is to continuously evolve, and to close yourself to allowing energy to go there limits is opportunity for growth in the future and more experiences. The ego plays a very different time frame in how people revolve around money. And this is one of the big things because people evolve from the first to the second circle in search of identity and purpose. And so when you evolve into a state of societal identity in the second circle, you typically create more ego because money comes into your life. The big difference between people who manage their ego versus people who don't as it pertains to money is people who understand that word, which that word is identity in itself. When you have a lot of identity, you typically don't have a lot of ego to compensate for that identity. You're very true to who you want to be, regardless that it's a societal identity or not, and you stay consistent with the fact. However, when you don't have societal identity and you're kind of lost in why are you here, what do you represent, or what is your purpose at this very moment, you tend to lose that purpose in the idea that making money gives you an identity, or should I say some level of status or acceptance within the world of society. So when you fall victim to basically the money aspect of that identity, you become ultimately the ego, meaning you allow the ego, the alter ego of the person you wish to become, to basically control the person you are. And the difference between the person you wish to become and the person you are is the experience that isn't occurring because the ego is basically formulating this ideology in your head of who you are rather than who you need to be. You see, the point of life is to experience, to grow, and to move past. By having experience, we retain power from that experience, right? You buy a car only to learn how to buy a car again. Even better. And this improvement over time makes you an expert in a field, right? And these expertises allow you to branch off into other things. You might become an expert in buying a car, but that gives you negotiating power to buy a house. And the idea is that the overall experience and knowledge of how fundamentally life in society or life as a whole works increases over time, making you wiser. This is why they say the older you are, the wiser you get, or you're supposed to anyways. Realistically, what ends up occurring in a lot of people's minds is they forfeit this idea of identity for the sake that the identity that others assume of them because they have some money appeals more to them than their identity of themselves. And so they assume their alter ego the most. Like there's a difference between owning a Ferrari to drive this Ferrari so that others praise you for owning it versus to drive a Ferrari because you appreciate the passion the heritage, and the feeling that driving a Ferrari creates. And the more conscious you are towards your experience, the more selective you are about what you wish to experience. And more importantly, you become so selective, as a matter of fact, that you become so granular to how do you spend every minute of your life living the life you want to live, not the life others expect you to live. And so this again comes back to the idea of identity and purpose, and something that ego is very good at locking you down for. So if you've experienced yourself basically being lost in the idea of what others think of you, and only you can answer this question, meaning being concerned about how others, like your family, perceive you, your friends perceive you, wanting to appear more successful than you are, then you need to really take a moment to really check yourself in front of a mirror and ask yourself, are you truly seeking identity, or are you more excited about the identity others give you? And I think we can see the same basically in, for example, athletes who have come from very humble upbringings and are given $100 million contracts, quickly buying things to establish their identity, versus other athletes quickly creating things to build an identity, right? One more interested in the experience of the identity that comes as a result of the benefit from the money, the other more interested in what others think of him, therefore you losing the money, or should I say spending it twice as fast as earning it, coming back down to the reality, because ego does this. It shields you from the experience, and at some point when the money runs out and the shield goes away, what do you have? The same person that never evolved to begin with, right? This is why I always say with great freedom comes great responsibility, and that's the responsibility of having to know how to use your time. So when money buys you that freedom, you have to ensure that you're not using that freedom and using every minute it's bought you. Because if you don't at some point, it won't buy you any more time, and you'll realize that you've wasted quite a lot of it. So this is my take on ego and the way people are basically misusing it and losing their identity through it. If you want more on this, of course, read Gate of Choice, Third Circle Theory, and Radius, and learn about this concept further in those books. And otherwise, make sure you click the description and actually join my 90-day bootcamp, where I break down for you your mental state one day at a time for 90 days and see if you can survive what it really takes to become a higher human. So click the link in the description and leave your comments. How has ego prevented you from evolving, and where have you caught yourself doing it? And I'll try to respond to every comment that was made on this video.